Right. Yes, this will be recorded because we promised people it would be. So if you don't want to appear on the video, you can shut off your video and that kind of thing. We will not be recording. We're going to go into breakout rooms later, and we're not going to be recording those because that will be your work time. Just this part in the main room. All right, hang on. Let me go back here and get the other link. So if I do this and copy the link.
Vicki, we got you with the link.
Okay, good. It'll just bring up the long link and you can put that in. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Bill, why don't you?
Awesome. So let's just do a round of introductions in the chat. I know the chat is also being used to share links, so I don't want to take over that. But in the chat, let's just do a round of introductions with your name. Tell us what you do in CS education, and then tell us a topic you hope that you might be able to present at CSTA 2023. So again, that's your name, what you do with CS education, and then a topic you might want to present at CSTA 2023.
And if you don't have a topic yet, we're going to have kind of a brainstorm session on that as well. So. I love unplugged as a topic, Tina. One of my favorite things to do. Ah, cool. Corinne, where do you teach? Because I'm in Los Angeles. And so
am I.
I'm in San Marcos near San Diego.
Oh, okay.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, both Vicki and I are in Los Angeles. See some really cool topic ideas already.
Oh, NASA, that's cool.
Yeah, like Vicki said, we will help with some brainstorming as well, but it's just great to see like topics that people get excited about, because these are absolutely all topics that we need represented at the conference.
I love focusing on making content accessible. Yes, that's great. VR, that's great. Wow, some great topics here. Keep with the introductions. We'll keep looking at the chat. So just so you know, in case you haven't looked at the proposal process, there's actually 4 types of things you can submit for this year. I'm not going to read this entire slide. You have access to it, you can read it, but there's 90-minute workshops and they're mostly hands-on. Okay. Breakout sessions, which will be 45 minutes in length, and their discussion and presentation. A mini session, which is going to be 15 minutes of presentation and then some Q&A, 5 minutes of Q&A and discussion. And then posters, which will be in booths in the exhibit hall, and they're going to be they're pre-recorded short videos, 5 to 10 minutes about a topic, and we will probably request that presenters actually be in their booth for an hour or 2 during the conference at set times, so that you can actually answer questions on the topic, just like you would do if you were presenting a poster face-to-face, because that's now, we now have the ability to do that in Hopin, so we're probably going to offer that. Logistics.
So we are so excited that you are here today with us to work on your proposal, because as you can see, the call has already gone out, but you still have plenty of time to work on those proposals and get them ready, because they are due November 6th. The conference committee, actually, I'm sorry, not the conference committee, but a group of volunteers actually begins the review period on the 21st of November That then closes on December 14th. And it's at that point that our conference committee takes over, and we identify, the best sessions based on ratings, but also based on the need and a diversity of topics in the program. And we will come to the end of that decision by early February, and we will let all of the presenters know whether or not they have been accepted in. And then make sure you have this date on your calendar. July 11th through the 13th is our virtual CSTA 2023 conference.
Again, I'm not going to read these in detail. You can go over them, but the review process, a couple things to point out. We keep submitter details confidential. So when you are writing your proposal, try not to put any personally identifying information in there. We don't want to bias our reviewers in any way if they know who you are or don't know who you are. So we try and keep any of that personal identifying information away from reviewers. Everybody's a CSTA member and they volunteered their time. We do have reviewer training on the rubric and how to review things so that it's not just giving them out to people. We do train people on it, but everybody comes in with different levels of experience. And then the reviews get tabulated so we know average scores and things. And the program committee comes together, like Bill mentioned. But it isn't always necessarily just a really high score that will get you into the program, because if all high scoring things are on the same topic, we're not going to accept all of those. We may go further down to find topics that are more unusual, correct? So the scores definitely count a lot. So you want to try and make sure that you're matching that rubric with your proposal, but also what the topics are and the different grade levels as well.
And so Vicki had started to touch on the selection criteria. So I'll reiterate some of this again, try not to read the whole thing to you, but it is really important that the topic is not only appropriate for CSTA professional development, meaning that it's centered around K-12 computing and everything that computing might look like in a classroom, but it's also really important to consider how your session proposal will be aligned to CSTA student and teacher standards. And that is, in fact, a question that's part of the submission and is something that the review panel looks at and the conference committee looks at, because we have these standards for both students and teachers. And we want to make sure that everything that comes forth from CSTA is aligned with those standards. But beyond that, and again, Vicki was just sort of touching on this as well, that the treatment of the topic is useful and reasonable, is something that makes sense and can actually be done in the time allotted. We have seen, I've been on this panel, I've been a reviewer for a few years, and like sometimes we see things that, might be better as a workshop, but it was submitted as a 20-minute mini session. So we take those things into consideration. Like, did this person think through how they're going to actually address this topic? Is this something that can be addressed in a virtual setting as well? Is this something that's new and fresh, or is this something that we presume probably a lot of people have heard of and know and might not attend that session? We also want to make sure that the takeaways for attendees are very clear, and that will also be something that you have to respond to when you fill out that session proposal.
Hello?
And it's really just to ensure that you have thought through everything that you hope your attendees walk away with. And that's so important because we've all been in those sessions where we do question ourselves, like, I wonder if this person thought what we're going to get out of this. And so we want to make sure you're thinking about that already.
Okay.
And then this year, something new we're going to request for all of the sessions is just a brief outline that sort of lets us know that you have thought through, how you might structure your presentation, whether it's a 90-minute workshop or a 20-minute mini session, or even that poster session. And so we want to see, again, just that you don't have to have a fully fleshed out presentation when you're presenting, but the selection criteria will revolve around making sure that you have thought through everything that you are going to put into your presentation.
All right. What I want you to do now is in the slides there, if you get to this slide, which is slide 9, and click on the rubric, it's going to open the rubric for you. And we want to take a couple minutes and have you kind of look at this rubric. Okay. And then we'll ask what you thought of it or any questions you have on that. So let's just take about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to look at this. All right. Whoops, sorry about that. I clicked where I wasn't supposed to. So what sticks out to you on the rubric and what questions do you have? If anybody has any, you can either put them into chat or feel free to unmute and ask about something that stuck out to you on the rubric that you think might be really important, or any questions that you might have around the rubric right now. We're going to revisit again later too. Okay, it looks like everybody's okay so far on this.
And so now we're getting into the more interactive section of our workshop today. And this is actually where we're going to begin our idea brainstorm. So we want you to start thinking that you have some teaching genius that someone in our CSTA community needs to hear. Your presentation could be a game changer in classrooms around the world. And our goal today is to find your special sauce and help you summarize it. So on the next slide, there's going to be a link, and actually, Vicki, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the link that they've already accessed. So you should have the brainstorming sheet available, and we're going to begin brainstorming just some of these teaching geniuses that you have, some of these game-changing ideas, some of this special sauce that you have that you might not even realize you have, but that you have that you could contribute to CSTA and that others could benefit from. So I'll just keep going for a moment, Vicki, if that's okay, unless you want to jump in. But right now, so back to that brainstorming sheet, or the worksheet that you opened. At the very top is an idea for you to start jotting down some ideas. And we've got a bunch, and I'm not even going to read them to you, unless, Vicki, do you want me to read them?
No,
Okay.
you guys can look at them on the slides. If you're looking for an idea, read these, right? Think about things you're passionate about, favorite things to teach, etc., right? And if none of those jog you, then look at the next slide. These are the topics that you're going to be able to select from. So pick something in one of those topics, right? And then think, what could I do in those topics? So you're going to want to look at, if you're looking for ideas, look at slides 12 and 13 in the slides.
And so we're going to take about 5 minutes to just give you some time to think through. No idea is a bad idea. And remember, there's always something that someone can learn from, something that you are doing really cool in your classroom. So yeah, we'll set a timer for about 5 minutes. Feel free to use the chat if you do have any questions or just want to put anything there. But yeah, we'll reconnect in about 5.
Maureen, you probably, I'm sure you don't really need to get permission to highlight their curriculum. No. You know, we often have people presenting on, like, I use Google CS first, and I'm going to do a topic on how to use it in my classroom. And that's just fine. I don't have to ask Google for permission to do that.
We've got about 1 minute left for those 5 minutes.
Philip, are you on a school account? Sometimes school accounts don't let you access things
No, it's not a
outside of
school
the domain.
account. No, it's a government account because I work for the New Mexico PED.
Do you have a personal Google account?
I do, but it's a completely different computer and I can't sign on to it on my work computer. So I'm trying to get it rocking and rolling over here.
Because it's publicly available, this
That's so
this
weird.
document.
Sorry for being a troublemaker. I apologize.
You are not a troublemaker. Hang on. I'm going to
I'll make a PDF of it and I can pull your email from registration and I'll email you the PDF.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate
Of course, and if anyone else is having issues, send me a direct message or post it in the chat and I can take care of it as well.
Philip, I just put a link to my copy in if you want to make a copy of my copy. I don't know if that, for some reason, that'll let you in.
It
Because
was the
sometimes if
same.
too many are accessing at once, it can be a problem as well. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's the problem.
It was the same thing, but here, I'm gonna
Okay.
pop it into my personal and I think we'll probably be good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your help though.
Okay, how's everyone feeling about the brainstorming? It doesn't mean that that is the end of your brainstorming time for the topic, but we do want to just move forward a little bit because in a moment we are going to actually go into breakout rooms and we're going to give you some time to actually take some of these ideas and work through them and start seeing what they might look like in the presentation. So, next
Right.
slide.
Okay, when you go in to actually do your proposal, the first section is called presenter details. We're not covering any of that tonight. We're not having, that's not on your worksheet. It's your things like your name and your email and that kind of stuff. We're not covering that. The only note I want to make is if you say you are a teacher, we do want some kind of link to verify you're a teacher, because we want most presentations to be from teachers to teachers. So, but we want to make sure you really are a teacher and you aren't just saying you're a teacher, right? So if there's a URL to the staff list at your school, that's awesome. Your LinkedIn account is fine. If you take a picture of your school ID, upload it somewhere and give us a link to that, something that verifies you're a teacher, right? All right. So we're going to go over a few things. I'm going to do this one, Bill, and then I'll let you go to the next one. We're going to go over a few things that we're going to do in this next section in a breakout. You're going to go into a breakout room, and it's a good place to maybe also work ideas off against one another. Maybe there'll be somebody in there that wants to help you with your topic. I saw a question on that in there. That might be a good place to do it in the breakout. So you're going to choose a presentation type. You need to think about that right now because the breakouts are by presentation type. Okay. And so think about how much time you're going to want to present. You know, do you want to do a workshop? It's supposed to be hands-on. Are you comfortable with doing that virtually? That kind of thing. So think about length of time, the format, and you can choose your presentation type on your worksheet. Okay, you can always change your mind on that. You can always submit it in multiple formats or say you're willing to present in multiple formats. Again, here's the presentation types, just so you don't have to go as far back in the slides. Okay, it's the same information as was before. Bill.
Sure. And then presentation title is, of course, really important because if you've been to a conference before, you know what you look at to tell you where to go. Sure, we hope that people read the session descriptions or even just the short description, but we have to be honest in that people look at that title, and that title is really important. So in that first sub-bullet point, keep it short, specific, and unique. We want it to be fun and eye-catching, but it is really important that you start thinking about that. And sometimes even I like to think of a title, which helps me then sort of frame my presentation. Sometimes it works to think of your presentation and then come back to the title, but one way or another, tonight's a great night to start thinking about what that title might be, even workshopping it and asking for some feedback in this session. And then I do love the list of some examples from previous conferences. Just take a look at those and how they're engaging, but you also know exactly what that session is going to be about.
Great. Also, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's hard to see grade levels on like the agenda or anywhere. So sometimes it can be helpful to put that in a title so that people know what grade level your thing is aimed at. Hopefully we'll get that to show up in the agenda or something, but it hasn't in the past. So, all right, Topic, you can choose from 1 to 3 different topics that fit your presentation. And we use these as the program committee to balance the program. We don't want everything to be about algorithms and programming, right? We don't want everything to be about AI, okay? So we use it to balance it, to make sure we have a variety of topics. And topics, attendees can narrow down their search for things by topics as well. So pick 3 to 5. I just highlight them. I like to highlight them because as I draft my proposal, I can sometimes change up what I thought I was going to do, and my topic may change slightly. So I just highlight them so I know how to fill in, and that way I don't lose anything.
The session overview and abstract is probably maybe the hardest thing to write because it's the one that takes the most thought, but this really is going to be the most important part, especially for the reviewers and the folks on the conference committee who are selecting the panel of sessions, because this is where you get to tell us what is happening. The next slide is actually about the short description, and that is what the attendees at the conference will get to see. But this really is where you get to tell us what your session is all about. And so it's 500 to 1,500 characters. And Vicki, we just looked this up the other day, and now I forgot already. But that's about what, like 20 sentences? Did we say 25 sentences?
15 to 20, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, this is fairly substantial, but it's also your opportunity to tell us everything that you want to present in that session. You do want to make it enticing, and if possible, you want to start with the hook. So think about it as being like one of those informative essays that lets us know what it what you're going to do and why it's exciting and why it should be part of our program. And again, I'll say this again, this is not going to be seen by the actual people attending the conference, but this is your opportunity to sell yourself to the people who are making the decisions around who's going to present at this conference.
I believe this, Michelle, is this shown on the agenda, the large agenda? I don't remember.
Oh, on the website.
On the website,
Yes.
but it's not shown on Hopin.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't leave Hopin once they're in the virtual conference. So all they see is the short description, which is the next thing. So we want to summarize that. You only have 140 characters. If anybody's on Twitter, that used to be the limit on Twitter. Twitter's now twice as long, and I find I can fill up 280 characters. So this is what people will see when they're looking at things in Hopin, your title and this short description. So try and pick out something that will catch attention along with your title in there. This can be one of the hardest ones to actually do well. So maybe ask for help on that one. All right, now we're going to head into the breakouts. You can pick your room, and we're doing it by session type. The workshops is one breakout if you're doing a workshop. If you're doing breakouts and mini sessions, it's a second one. If you're doing posters, it's a third one. Okay, because you might have different needs for things, and work on those things. The title, the topic, the abstract, and the short description. We're going to spend maybe 20-ish minutes or so in the breakout. Maybe 25 minutes, because we're going to have a second breakout too. So we want to come back and go over that. Get feedback from other people. Maybe show your abstract and have people help you summarize it for the short description, those kinds of things. Talk to people about maybe co-presenting if there's cool people in your room. All right. Head to your breakouts. So just go and pick your breakout. If you go down to the breakout room should have popped up. So just pick your room and head into it. If you have trouble with that, Michelle can help you with that. Bill and I are going to be hopping in and out of the rooms, and there will be people facilitating to help you.
Eric, to answer your question, yes, there is a question in the call for proposals field that lists any sort of hardware or software that is recommended for attendees to be successful in that type of session or presentation. And we will list those on the larger abstract as well, so folks can know what they need in advance to be prepared.
Michelle, Karen, who I believe is still in this room, asked a question about an overall theme for the conference to tie into.
So we don't typically do a conference theme and really just try to align our content to what is the best, what do CS teachers need? We always look for content that has a strong focus on equity and inclusion and are aligned to those standards. That's always a really big need and something that we find really important. But also, I think with like the hot topic on content itself changes every year. Last year, we got a lot of submissions about AI, and that was really up from previous years. So really, I think another type of session that's also really popular is like taking a lesson or something that's been really successful in your classroom and presenting on that. Bill or Vicky or anyone that's been on the committee for a while, if you have any thoughts on that to add.
And CT integration, CS and CT integration in elementary is very popular topic, because we get a lot of people that maybe classroom teachers, especially at a virtual conference, will probably get more we'll get some classroom teachers, and they want to know how to integrate it into their school day. They aren't necessarily specialists. So.
Also, I saw a question from Nicole about being a software engineer and presenting. And I would say, just based on what you said in the chat about you're a software engineer by training, but that you are working with K-12 educators, absolutely makes you the right person to be presenting at this conference. So wanted to make sure I did circle back. I realized I lost my attention on the chat, but did want to say that you absolutely would be the right person to present.
Wonderful, exciting, thank you.
Yeah.
So join a breakout for whichever session type you're making. So just click on the breakouts, pick that one, and head on in.
And Michelle, don't forget to stop or pause the recording.
I will, thank you. I was just going to add that if you don't know which session type you're thinking of, click on any, but if you're looking for a smaller group environment, posters has the fewest folks, so you might have some good interaction in that room. And I'm going to pause the recording now. Thanks for the reminder, Bill.
Welcome back. Did we get you mid-sentence or mid-thought from people? We just want to kind of go over the next section of things that you need to fill out, and then we'll go back into breakouts, okay? So are we all back? Are the rooms
Not yet.
closed?
There's like 12 people back so
Okay.
far.
Yeah, it's counting them down. They've got 20 more seconds. And then
All right.
I'm someone who always stays in that breakout room the last possible second.
Me too.
And it
I
does
stay
always cut me off.
I stay till I get yanked. So all right. So it look like we're all back. All right. We want to talk about the next section of stuff. That was the very first section. And these are basically the pages you're going to go through when you're doing your proposal. Okay. So in the next section, you need to pick the grade levels addressed. This is different this year. If you've submitted in the past, we let you select multiple grade levels. This year, we want you to choose the primary grade level this is for. Because we found in the past that people would pick grade levels that they didn't normally teach and they hadn't ever taught the lesson to, but they thought it could be adapted for that. We want you to focus on the fact that I've taught this at elementary, so I should pick elementary. Yeah, maybe it'd be okay for middle school. And if a middle school teacher reads the abstract or reads the description and the thing and decides to attend, that's great. But we don't want to second guess and say that. So you're going to pick the grade level, and not grade level specific doesn't mean pick that if you wanted to choose multiple grade levels. Still pick the primary grade level that this would be taught at. Don't pick not grade level specific. If it's a lesson being taught to students, it's grade level specific. Okay. If it's, if it's curriculum being taught, if you are a curriculum provider, you might have something that covers not grade level specific. But if you are a teacher, you are primarily teaching at the high school or at a middle school or at elementary. Okay, so pick those. Not grade level specific is best for pedagogy type sessions where it will not be grade level specific. How to do that might apply at every grade level. Pick the right grade level.
The next two slides are actually going to be about those CSTA standards that I mentioned earlier in this workshop. The first one that you're going to be asked to identify are the teacher standards, and we are going to ask that you choose the best 1 or 2 standards. Choosing a second one is completely optional, and then it actually limits your justification. So think if we ask you to pick a standard and then justify how that standard connects to your presentation. If you do pick 2, you have to justify both, and so that actually gives you less opportunity to justify. So this is a situation where less is definitely more. And again, like Vicki said with the grade levels, hone in on like exactly what it is. Don't try to choose a couple teacher standards and hope for the best or hope that one of them is the one we're looking for. Really tell us the one teacher standard from the CSTA teacher standards that connects with your presentation.
And the same goes with the student. We are not asking you to identify a student standard because that gets too granular. We want you to be at the subconcept level. So like, algorithms and programming variables, for example. We're asking you to identify the subconcepts that you would be addressing. So if it's about teaching something to students, you should have at least one subconcept selected. There is a not applicable, because if it's a pedagogy session, for example, you're not going to have a student standard for that. But if it's about teaching to students, you should have a student standard for that, at least one. But you could have up to 2, and you should have the subconcepts. There are links out to more information about the teacher standards and the subconcepts in your document. So if you're not familiar with them, you might want to look at those links to learn a little more about them. Again, you have to justify kind of how it's going to apply to those standards.
This next one is interesting because it's, again, very short, but in those 300 characters, we're asking you to say a lot, because this is where you get to tell the session reviewers your presentation takeaways. And if you remember from checking out the rubric, this is a key part of that rubric. And I'll even be honest, in my years on the panel, like reviewing sessions, like I have seen really great sessions rated lowly simply because they didn't put any takeaways, or the takeaways just didn't make sense. And I'll be entirely honest, I think because it comes later in the application, some people don't fill it out or don't take it as seriously. But if you look at that rubric, you see that it's one of the main points, and it really will impact your score if you don't present the reviewing panel with those takeaways. Again, correct me if I'm wrong again, but I do not believe they will be presented anywhere to any of the attendees. These really are just for the panel to review. I'll pause. Was I wrong, or is that right?
Well, in the past, you're right. We're making an internal shift where we are starting to share takeaways for all of our content. So key takeaways.
Oh, cool.
These will likely be on the program. If they're not on the conference website, they will then be in the recording library that goes into all of CSTA's content library that, as a CSTA Plus member, everybody gets access to. included with their membership.
Awesome. That worked out like a great little plug there. So, okay, awesome, cool. I'm glad to hear that they are included because, I mean, you're going to work hard on them and, you know, they should show up somewhere. But anyway, this is a really important section and it's really, really crucial for those reviews.
Right. We'd hate to see you get your session rejected because you didn't fill out the takeaways. So, now the next thing is outlines. Outlines are not required. They were required in the past for workshops. They're not required, but they're really, really strongly encouraged. As a reviewer, if people are reviewing, they want to know as much as possible about your session. And if you do an outline that tells me basically how you plan on using your time, and show me where those interactive things are for workshops, for example, or show me that you understand a mini session is 15 minutes of a presentation and 5 minutes of a Q&A, as opposed to I read your abstract and it sounds like you're going to spend 3 hours, right? So the outline can help me as a reviewer clarify that you really do understand the time that you have. That's why we highly encourage the outlines. There's a link to another thing you copy that you would save as a PDF to upload when you do your proposal for outlines. Okay, keep it short, under a page, just descriptions of what participants are going to be doing, and break out the time so that we know that you understand the time you have. I'll do this. Go ahead, Bill.
Sure. So this next section also are things that are really important to consider or not throwaway questions, even though they do appear at the end. But this first one especially is important because we need to know as the committee if you're willing to do your presentation as a different format. Because sometimes we see a session, we're like, wow, this would be an amazing workshop. But if it didn't apply as a workshop, we can't do that unless you have said in this section that you're going to do it as a workshop. Or maybe we see something that's a workshop and we realize that it might not be fully fleshed out enough to be a full 90-minute workshop, but it'd be an amazing 45-minute presentation. This is where you can tell us that. It also makes it easier on our end, instead of folks submitting the exact same proposal for multiple things, and then we don't know where it fits best, or we don't know what you actually want it or where you want it to fit best. So this is actually the best way for you to ensure that you get the best fit for what your presentation is going to cover. But then also there was the question about if I want certain devices or certain software, this is your place to tell us that. For example, I love to do Scratch Junior presentations, and so this is where I might put down that it'd be important to have a tablet or a device that can run the Scratch Junior app.
We had a question on if spaces counted in character counts. Yes, they do. In case you don't know, if you aren't familiar with Google Docs, if I highlight text in a Google Doc, so let's say I'd written something here, I could highlight it, and I can just go to Tools, Word Count, and Character Count is here. This is the one you want to look at. How many characters? Okay, so that would be 170 characters. Okay, so Google Docs is great for that. It's easy to see. It's easy to see in other things too, but since you've got a Google Doc, might as well use it. All right, we're going to go back into breakouts, probably for about 20-ish minutes or so again. Yeah, let's say 15 minutes or so, because we're going to want to come back and wrap up and talk about analyzing against the rubric again for a second. So join those and work on those additional fields. So we want to work on the grade levels, that's easy, but the teacher standards, student standards, and your justifications, the takeaways, and then answer those last two, presentation types and devices.
Hey, Vicky, we had a question come up. I don't know if now's a good time.
Now's a good time.
Okay, in regards to the student standard subconcepts, the website that it links to also lists some computing practices. Those are not options for subconcepts, is that correct?
We're not correct. Those won't be things you can choose from, because the two together, the subconcept and the practice, make a standard. So we're not
Okay.
doing the practice side of it. We're just doing the content knowledge side of it.
Okay, and so then if they're
They can mention the practice if they wish in their abstract, and that
Okay.
could be very helpful, but that isn't something you can choose from.
So then if they're doing something that's more pedagogy and they're choosing not applicable for a student standard, I assume then that the description is not required, like the justification.
If it is required, just put not applicable again. I think it's not required, but I'm not sure. Sometimes CVET can be picky on some things. So if it asks and you need to type something, put a dot in there or say not applicable or something. So
Okay, thank you, Vicki.
you're welcome. We're going to quickly wrap these up. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Some things that you may want to do right now to your worksheet, and then we'll ask for additional questions at the end, and we can stay if you have any additional questions. The first thing you should do is revisit the rubric and think, if your proposal were scored today, what would it score? And why would it score that way? There's a field on your worksheet for that. So if you want to do that, feel free to do that. We're not going to spend any time on it just because we're about at the end. And then one thing that I would like you to make sure you note on your worksheet before you're done with it today is some actionable takeaways for yourself. Like what do you need to do next on this? Because our goal is to get you to actually submit what you started today. So what can you do to make sure that's going to happen by the deadline? Okay, so you may want to note those things on your worksheet really quickly. And then we have a few last notes. Bill?
Great. So this is just a friendly reminder that you don't have to have your entire presentation complete before submitting your proposal. I'll be honest, I've been presenting at CSTA for years and have never had a complete presentation at the time of submitting a proposal, and that is okay, just as long as you have that idea in your mind. But once you do have that actual proposal developed, you have a proposal developed, and it's a really good idea to submit it everywhere. Think about your local CSTA chapter, think about presenting that topic at your school or at your school district, or there's lots of other local and national conferences. So take that proposal and submit it everywhere.
Yeah, and it can give you good practice if you submit it somewhere that happens before the CSTA conference. You've now done a dry run of it, and you may tweak it a little before you give it at CSTA.
And don't be discouraged. If you do get a rejection this year, it is completely okay to take that proposal, maybe tweak it a little bit, dust it off a bit, and resubmit it the next year, and it might actually be accepted that next year. There's lots of folks who it might be rejected one year because they had too many sessions on AI that year, and the next year an AI session was exactly what the conference panel needed. So don't be discouraged by a rejection. It just means it might need a little more work, or another time might be better. And then finally, if you don't submit, the answer is automatically no. So truly, you have nothing to lose by applying. Don't be afraid. Don't worry about getting the no. It happens. It's totally okay. And honestly, just like we tell our students, you can learn from getting that no, and it's completely okay to try again and resubmit again the next year.
I've had many a rejection. It's always better when you get an acceptance, but I've had many a rejection. If anybody has any questions, Bill and I are happy to stick around and answer them. If you want to spend a moment or two before you get off to jot yourself some notes in your worksheet, feel free to do that. And If as you're finalizing things and getting ready to submit, you have additional questions, our contact emails are there. Contact us and we're happy to help. And I'm going to stop sharing. If I can get this thing to stop sharing, come on. There we go. Thank you, everybody. And
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
thank you.